So I was giving a little introduction just before everybody else arrived. And all I was saying is I'm going to go through a few of these elements here, key talking points. We're going to go through the 5 streams, why I chose to split things out the way that I did, and what the rationale is for it, so that you can then go up and set your own systems up accordingly. It's all of this is all a oh, you guys can't see anything. Okay, one moment. That's because I need to do that. Okay. Okay. So what I was saying just a moment ago is I'm going to go through these main options during this deep dive. I'm going to go into why the 5 streams are constructed the way that they are, and why the 5 stream types are constructed the way that they are, and why they split out further. And I'll talk a little bit about the architecture so that you understand why things are going where. I'll go into a little bit more detail about the smart pad, and I'm going to kind of go through all of this whilst kind of showing a little bit of a demonstration at the same time. The main idea is to kind of show how I use this on a day-to-day basis, but also to take any questions so you guys can set your own systems up and basically understand the rationale for it. So I'll kind of start with going into the audio's breaking up. Is this a little bit better? I'll keep going and maybe I'll slow down, and that might help the scenario. Yep. You can hear the audio now, David, yeah? Okay, audio is good. All right. So the streams break down into those 5 different types, and it's mainly because of their purpose versus a sorting and organization point of view. The whole system is built in a way where everything in your system does have some type of behavior, whether it's a function, whether or not it's just default Tana, but it has some type of behavior. So it's a case of how do you work out what goes where, and it's based on the behavior of that item. For example, projects, no matter if they are time restricted or non-time restricted, work or personal, they go into a focus because that is their behavior, that's their function, that's their purpose. So the whole system is broken down in that sort of way. And Tana kind of allows you to have so much variety in your own personal workloads that this system that I've done, the template that I've created, it's effectively trying to not mimic it, but enable you to do that even more so. Basically, the idea is that there's a couple of functions that the streams are actually providing for you. One is organization through the entire system and directing things around, but that's just a small part of it, because what they're also trying to do is share functions across different groups. So when I was talking about different behaviors before, that's effectively dictating what that stream is going to do. So it can go even more, granular, and you can go down to the super tag level and adjust things this way as well. But let's keep it just at the top for the moment. So as an example, the functions within this system, I'm just going to use the Vault Save as an example. You've got 2 types, which is dynamic and archive. And by doing it this way, you can break down that into its own super tag function and therefore share the whole thing across multiple different super tags. But it also means that different items within the stream type can share different functionalities. So I, for example, didn't particularly want to have my day-to-day tasks interfering with my higher level objectives, which were also doing something different to the projects. So it kind of came from that level where there's things I don't want to see on a day-to-day basis. There's things I want to see now in the moment and consistently. There's things I want to work through, and there's things I only really want to see if I go looking for them. So that's kind of why and how the streams are all constructed. And that kind of leads me into why the saving functions are doing what they're doing as well. Because when the dynamic versus archive, for example, there are certain things like your focuses or your records. There's things you want to go into a vault and keep there and stay there. And that might be everything for some people and it might be nothing for others. But there will be certain things that people want to move around and put out of sight and out of mind until needed. And that's where the views come in because they're putting everything together. So the whole system's built on this 3-dimensional linking system where you've got the vault, origin, and the focus. The vault's where it's just going to be stored. If you have the date as a setting on this, though, you won't have the vault. You'll just have the date as the point of contact. But you have origin and focus, which are kind of your lead indicators of everything that's going on. Origin, almost like your direct link to like the specific thing it's related to because it was created in there or it's directly linked to it. So I kind of use this. I'll show you how I use this in a moment, actually. So let's go to the today page and I'll put it into kind of action. I'll put it into action. If we create a brand new project off the scope, top of my head, I'm just going to go logo design and we'll add that as a new project. Click missing company to initiate it. And then we come set the company, very much so like I just did in my demonstration where I just closed the view down after that to hide all the fields. And now I've got all the tabs set up. What you would then effectively do is you can go to the Snips and all the content on here is effectively what you use to then build your projects. You can do it all in the Scratchpad and manually sort it all, but I'm going to like fully demonstrate the Snips at this point. So we'll go for that. So if we're going into discovery phase, this linking system tells me that this was created here and also that's the specific focus. However, this becomes more into play when you have task because now we've got a different origin and a focus because the task is directly related to that discovery phase and also the focus. So it's a way to get more granular with your referencing as well. But you could also, for example, have a document if you wanted to that does not have a focus attached to it, I think. New document. Right, it's got both. Okay. So there are certain things that only have the origin attached to it. And I can't remember exactly which one it is right now, but we'll discover that in a moment. And that's because it doesn't necessarily need to be directly linked to a project focus. It could just be linked to an origin, which also accounts for the focuses as well. But you didn't need to have that second level of linking. Whereas something like a action will need to have that extra level because you've got that hierarchy already established. So the idea really is to only have these items really driving the system. So if we go into actions on the today page, please tell anyone raise their hand if I'm going fast or anything like that. I can pull everything that is related to today on the today page. And this kind of goes down to a little bit of the question as well of like what's related, what's relevant, when and where. I'll just finish off on why the linking system's the way that is, because when we come onto the day page, if we create a snip on the today page, it's the reason why that's not working. That's a wonder. Okay, so you can see a live troubleshoot. what's going to happen now is I'm going to work out why the day page is not linking through. So I'm going to go into views, and I can see that there. Hover over him, daily focus. Okay, hang on. Okay, not sure why that's not working, but we're going to switch workspaces. So logo, I'm going to just continue in here. So if I pull these tasks into this scope and I grab a snip, for some reason the command was gone. I don't know why. I'll work out. It's a demo project. This is the correct one. So I know it's working. But I don't know what I did before. I must have done something. So basically, when you're in here, you're going to get these missing links, and it gives you the opportunity to be a lot more focused with your targeting of what you want to do. I don't have to link both of them up. I could just do one of them. But the idea here is that you can actually turn around and get very specific with what you want this task to be related to. If it's not created in there, if it's in a position where you're in the milestone and you're creating a new task, this is perfect because it just automatically links everything up for you. So the idea really is to go to these places to plan and do and set up, but not actually to work. Your day page is effectively supposed to be your main source of action. So this is where you get things done. You can see that I'm in this space. I've got 2 things items here, which are turning around to me and saying that they are overdue. So they're not going to disappear anywhere because they're overdue. This actually leads me in. So there's a couple of things that the smart pad and the day page have got in common, which is this clean and organized system. And there's a couple of instances that will dead stop something and not allow it to progress further forward. Okay. In this instance, I've got 2 items here that will not go anywhere. And the reason is because they are overdue. So they need your attention this minute, and they don't need to be done this minute. You can reschedule them. But the idea is that they are overdue. They need your attention. You need to make an action to either put them away or do something about it. So in this instance, I'm going to push this one to tomorrow, clear the board, and continue on with this one. So the intention is to be in the moment and continue doing what you're doing. This way, it's kind of forcing you to take action on it's forcing you to take action on something that needs your attention, not you have to actively or consciously put it to the side and plan it for another time. So it's either tomorrow, 3 days, or 7 days, or you go into it and you adjust it accordingly. But these are the quick actions. So that's really the main key there, is that it's supposed to be a way to capture anything that might potentially get lost, or anything that might potentially not be linked up, or anything that is currently active that you forgot about. So if something happens to be, I'm just going to use this as an example, and I'm going to put him on yesterday. And the intention is that, oh, I forgot about him yesterday. It's now today. I'm going to hit this button and it pulls it to the today page for you. So the idea is that it keeps things in view and it allows stuff to happen that you need it to happen. So, why is it? So that's how this is all working. The next thing is with the smart pad. There's been a few instances where I've had 1 or 2 people saying that it's, something's not moving through the system properly, and chances are it might not be linked up correctly, or you might have double linked something. If you're seeing a vault and the date commands, then you've kind of like doubled something up in different spaces. So the way to check that is you can just right click into the super tag. And we come down to the content template. And it's literally a case of like, follow the track, like follow the hierarchy up. So we'll then go again and go into configure, but you could also just come down here to extensions and see if something's not quite the way it should be. What you'll probably see is 2 types or 2 streams or something like that. Or you'll see, hang on, I'll go back actually, it's probably an easy way to show you. You can see here. So if we go into that, okay, no, you can't, my bad. So in here, we can see that we've got function, bolt save. So we know that's okay. We've got the autosave dynamic. That's the trigger. Type execute, which is the grand scheme of things. And then you'll have functions. So usually you'll see things like this. Usually it'll be functions, type, and that will be the hierarchy. Save actions are usually right at the top. Then you've got the type or the stream. And then you've got the functions and things like that that are kind of stepped in between. I'll go back to explaining this for a second. Oop. So with this guy, there was a better one. So another use for the streams, going back a little bit before I go a bit further forward, the views are effectively set up to take content from those different streams. So if we've got the focus view as an example, we've got the actions, which are basically coming from the execute. So that allows you to do things like, oh, I've got a task, I've got a to-do, I've got a routine. These are all things that have the same level of action task. They're all just bottom level executions. They're all trackable, but I don't want to have a search which is just showing me the tasks, because then I missed the other actions that I might have used. So this is effectively what's happening here. It will collect all the information together from the stream and show you what's relevant. Objectives, transactions, events, and in this instance, for the focus view, we get everything from gather that's related to the project or the whatever the parent node is. So you've got a couple of different things there that I kind of went into, which was you've got the reason for the splits for the functions, you've got the reason for the splits for the different views, and you've got the reason for the splits for the organization and for the vaults, depending on how you want to work the different things. So the streams are kind of like the main infrastructure, and everything else is kind of plugging into or being extended to. Does anybody have any questions before I keep going? I'll accept like a big thumbs up from well or something. Okay. If I kind of keep going a little bit, I'll go to the today page. So we've also got these little views up at the top. And the intention for these guys is that you've got a daily view, which can kind of I wonder if I can. So you've effectively got the daily view. And one of the things that's happening within here is it's showing you everything that is currently active. And in this instance, I don't have anything that's currently active. But we'll go into the project and I'll just kind of move things around a little bit so that we can see what's going on. So I can see that in the calendar for here, I've got all these different things planned. Let's say I've done with all that. I want to start these things and get a head start on them instead. So this is where I'm kind of going to go through, I guess, a bit of a demonstration. I'll set these guys to active. And I can even close the calendar down if I want to, or just move it to the side. But the intention now is pull these to the top. I've got 2 objectives that are currently activated because of these guys. And what I'm effectively looking at is to go through and tick off, do everything I need to do for the day. And then by the end of it, this becomes essentially your logbook for everything that's going on. So you can go to the week and you can effectively see a nice little tally up of everything that's going on. If I go to, you end up with kind of a good track of everything and when your most productive times were and things like that. So I've kind of gone through how the today page is your main place of action. It's also your logbook. I'm in the wrong workspace. So I've gone through a little bit about how the day page is the main place to be. Like that's kind of where everything's supposed to happen. It's there's two things to kind of like be aware of. One is that the today page in itself, even though it's going to be your main place of action, the project and focus views in these spaces here are effectively your planning spaces. So you set everything up in the project and then hopefully you don't really need to go into it. But that's why the views are here, because then effectively you are 1 or 2 clicks away from getting to this space every single time. So that's the intention as well, is to like to minimize the effort to get places and to find things. So if I need to find something connected to this project now from the today page, it's a case of click to the view, go to the project, go to resources, and I'm probably going to find it in there. Likewise, you can set up all sorts of little views and things like that as well if you wanted to, because you could effectively do something like this where your objectives as well could also have the mini focus view, and then you've got all the resources connected to that as well, depending on how you choose to work. But the idea is to minimize your resistance getting places and finding things, but always to come back to the day page. There's something that someone brought to my attention recently, which Evie's talking about, which is it's not where, it's when. And it's very much so what this is trying to say as well. It's like, you're supposed to be at least with my methodology for this, at least, it's supposed to be bringing things to your attention when you need it to be. You don't need to go find it. And the whole purpose of things like the vaults and the save functions is purely just to make sure that you're maintaining a knowledge of where things are in your graph. So, and also to save a lot of redundancies. I can't tell you the amount of times I've deleted something and realized there's been nodes within it that have just gone and now I can't get them back. And I've got all these unavailable connections. It's very different if everything's going to where it's supposed to be, even if that place is the today page, and that's okay as well. But yeah, just the way things kind of operate around, it depends on what you're working on. But I've always found that my project being set up this way means that I can effectively go through here, delete the project, remove everything from this space, which is going to be a nice little demonstration, add it back in again, and it still maintains every single connection that it's supposed to establish. So even more of a reason for me not to lose this particular project. Oliver's got a question. What type of elements are in focus in the day page? Yeah. So, okay. On the today page itself, the items that are in focus are your focus types that are currently active or currently on the calendar. So this is showing next, but it's scheduled for currently. So it's currently there. Objectives will only show if they're activated, because you could have a couple of different tasks working on, but you might not necessarily want to have everything in this space. So they're only activated, but it just shows you the direct link to things. It depends on how you work in Tana. If you're the type of person to click into here, you might not necessarily need this, but It also means that if you just going to open up a page and dump these guys over here for a second. It also means if you come to your day and you're like, oh, well, actually, I've got these guys here. There's something on still. It's just another word. It's just another visual key. I imagine in some time when Tana has these related content panels and things that were coming in, I reckon some of this might become a little bit irrelevant. But the main one is the actions queue and the focus. The intention is to kind of see what's active and to then make judgments of what you're doing with it. So the actual actions themselves will show you by jigger through things around on this one, you'll see a bit of a better example. So if I put him back and move him back and move him back, there are those guys. Ooh. Can't clear them because they are currently overdue. I set them for back there. Okay. So for the purpose of the demonstration, I've just had to jig everything around. But the idea is that this actions queue will show you a history log. Well, not a history log, sorry. What's due for everything before today. So everything that needs your attention now. I did have somebody ask me an interesting question, which was, how do you like anything that's active or due or correct? Yes, anything that's active or due. So if something's set to active, it will show here. Okay. The intention is that this button and this button are doing the same thing. It's the same command. It's just one's here and one's here. So if you want to pull everything that's active or overdue, basically this list, you can pull all that way. But if you're the type of person that wants to go into it, go back a moment. If you're the type of person that wants to go into it and adjust accordingly, then that's, something. Why is this thingy? Yeah, if you're the type of person that goes into it in that regards, then it just depends on how you choose to do it. It's, I really like the idea that not even the idea. I really like the workflow where I come up to my desk in the morning, I hit this button and it basically brings everything to my attention that I need in my attention. But that's also because I have a task-driven system or an action-driven system. I only have one tag for my task structure. Everything else within it is checklist items. So it means that I can then keep track of a task that might have several little key things, but I don't need to keep track of design homepage mockup. I need to keep track of the overall, this is what I'm doing today. It might have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 steps, and that's okay. But if it's got multiple tasks in it that contain multiple lists, then it's a deliverable, or it's a milestone, or it's a phase, or it's something else. It's a higher level up. So that's where if I go into and talk about this. So that's where the distinction between the different stream types comes. And so this is where the, okay, David, all good. Apologies that it wasn't very good for him. He said the audio was crackling for him on the chat. Okay, the streams basically focus splits down, and you can think about it as professional and personal, or you can think about it as time restricted projects, or you can think about it as non-time restricted projects in terms of what ventures are doing and what pursuits are doing. Project is at this point something with a defined timeline. It relates to work, but you could have multiple different tags for this. In my own personal system, I actually went through my own hierarchy very recently, and I actually only have one project tag now, but I've got quite a few different pursuits because there's things that are not quite areas, not quite projects, don't really have a time restriction. They're areas, but they don't really function like an area. They function like a project. something like if you had a day job versus what your personal stuff and you wanted to banner it under one big thing, that would be a pursuit technically. But you could also then argue that I could just put on the company tag a dashboard view. But it depends on what level you assign to different hierarchies and where you choose to put things. The idea is to cut as many levels out as possible. You don't want to have a hobby or an area, with a project in it. In my mind, that's an extra step that you don't necessarily need to have. Welcome back, Nick. How was your dinner?
It's delicious.
So execute as another example of a stream. Objectives are effectively that middle ground container between what action and focus is doing. But there's a reason why it's split out, and some of it's to do with the progress bars because you don't want things to cross-contaminate. You might have a project, for example, with 20 tasks in it, but only 5 of those tasks are actually assigned to a milestone. The others are just assigned to the project. If you had both of them kind of assigned in the same categories, you'd start to get some cross-contamination on the progress bars of things being inside things, and that's not quite what you want. At least if you want to keep things clean. Transactions, hopefully, is kind of a bit of an obvious an obvious differentiation where they're effectively actions, but they are specifically finance related. So they may have extra properties in the fields. So if I click an invoice as an example, we can add things here like a total instead of we could even add it into transactions. So we would go into transactions and we could add total there, total amount. And now that will be, and the idea now is that is now assigned to both invoice and payment. So the intention is that you can't move these out because they're effective. Sorry, let me start again a little bit with that explanation and I'll move these things across a little bit. So what we can do by assigning things to the top level stream, certain fields, for example, if I know that this particular stream transactions is going to have different properties or different requirements to actions, and I know that transactions is always going to be finance related, I always know there's going to be a total assigned to it. So therefore you can set it at the top level and then spread it down. The intention really is that I could then turn around and go minus and 00. So I've got a reminder to put the minus in every single time. That comes in very handy when you're doing some calculations, by the way, within Tana tables. If you do totals for anything, if you put everything in as a minus, then you can do some nice forecasts, but that's for another conversation. So the intention really is to then share properties and share functions across the different elements. The rationale here is that, for example, on my personal system, every transaction has an API request which goes to a database. So I effectively add that API request to the entire stream, and that's a function that it shares across. But to be a bit more specific with this template, all actions and all objectives are going to share the same function status. Transactions might not, because you might not need in review or even next up or later, or even active, you might just need to have a complete option for transactions and that's it. It depends on what that functionality is behavior-wise in your system, but they can behave differently this way. For me, they've got very different behaviors in my system, which I can probably go into in another deep dive. I've touched on the 5 stream types. I've gone through kind of the linking system. I've talked about the smart pad and how that is basically built into the today page, especially with the snips as well. The only difference is that when you do that on the today page with the snips, you have to manually link things up versus automatically letting things just assign themselves. And I've kind of shown off a little bit about the intelligent status system where you're seeing different elements pop up in the today page. I will go to it for a reference. Where we have all these items and they all be at the information, the status will update to the parent sources accordingly. Got myself tongue twisted. So that was kind of the majority of things I wanted to go through. I will touch on this as well, which is the Snips element, which is basically all built in Tana paste. So what all of these items are doing is basically just picking the tag that you want through the Tana paste methodology. Because when this item's brought into the SmartPad, it makes a copy of it, but it doesn't make a cloned copy of it. It actually it acts like a snippet. You put the Tana paste code in, and you can use it effectively to build an entire structure for a project if you want to. You could even, if you really wanted to, have tag project and then go deliverable and then go and step all the tasks inside of it and construct an entire project if you wanted to from this point. But that's play around with it at the task level and deliverable levels first, but it has the potential to build an entire project structure within a drag to the today page. So that's another level up as well. Like if you actually, I'll show an example. Why not? So if we place the project hashtag in there and we add these guys in here instead, I think we do a bit of Tana paste. No, I don't even need to do that, do I? No, I don't need to do that. I will just in case I think we'll find out in just a moment. And then we'll drag discovery phase on. We've got a project with a deliverable with 2 tasks with project structure. It placed it on this here because it placed it as a child. You would technically, you could, you could do, so now I've got okay. Take a little bit of something to do if you wanted to kind of play around with it, but you could effectively build an entire project as I've just shown you, but you just have to work out what would happen with the tab. That's something probably in an expansion pack I'm going to work through, which is what's the next phase down for objectives and things like that, like objectives and meetings and the discovery phase in general, going into like how to initiate the project from a meeting with the client. There's things that are kind of planned for that step, which should hopefully be a part of the events and also part of the objectives streams. But these are expansions probably for later, and they will probably be they'll probably be their own products, but stay tuned for more because this is something that we're working out on how to do. But yeah, that's it. That's kind of Snips. That's the intelligent status. I showed you how to edit the dashboard views earlier as well. So I guess I've spoken for a good 45 minutes solid. And if anybody has any questions, now would be a really, really good time. What else have I got on here that I could probably go through? Is there anything that anybody's like had any specific questions about anything that they would love me to demonstrate in particular? Is there anything that, um, anything at all?
Are there any best practices?
So, yeah, okay, that's a really good one. So, in terms of best practice, if we're in a project, create everything in the smart pad because it has the ability to clean things and organize things. If you have any issues with something not moving properly, which it doesn't really happen, it happened um, at the early days, which is why I'm a little bit paranoid about it. But it's not like it's how do I explain it? I have things in my system that I had moved around several times and there was a conflict. If you ever find that there is a conflict, you move it to the today page and you just run it back through the clean brush. And that basically solves any conflicts that you may have with moving things around, just as an FYI. But using the system straight from fresh, you'll have no issue. It's basically it. The rationale is that you can't target the actual done date as a target location, and because of that, it means that I can't send it to a specific place every single time for the done time. Only if you're completing it in that moment. So if something's completed and it's elsewhere in the system, it will go to the created date instead. So that's like a fail safe that happens. and that was all. That was the only thing that I had to do. That was the only compromise that I had to make in the entire system, was I had to send it to the today page if it was done and not completed in that moment, and sent to the today page in that moment. Because the whole idea is that if something's on a dynamic system, it will log it to that today page. But if you're sticking old content onto, if you're putting content that you've got or that you already have into it, and let's say you've got all your actions and everything else, and you plug it all up into the system, it's going to turn around to you and say, oh, these items might not be where you want them to be in terms of their final save location. Do you want to move them? So it will ask you to move them and you move them. But it every so often there's one that didn't move, basically. And it was because it was already on the created date. So if that happens, you just send it through you just move to today and send it back through, and it'll just send it back to the created date. It's like it's like a leftover thing because I can't target it specifically. But other than that, everything else is like singing. I couldn't find a single issue with the entire system after many times testing it and including uninstalling it, installing it on my own personal system multiple times. The really clever thing with the fact that say clever and tooting my own horn massively there, but like the really interesting thing is by just moving things in and out of these cards, you're able to disconnect and connect the system up incredibly quickly, which means that if I've got a whole new schema, a little best practice tip. If we go and click into the actual schema on the node itself, you will see a related content panel on the right, and this will allow you to plug things up accordingly. If you go into streams again, like zoom into it again, you'll see a very specific related content panel that will just show you anything that's not attached currently to a stream that's in your system. So, for example, if I remove milestone, it will now show up in the related content panel to show that this one is not connected up into the system. Do you want to leave it there? Do you want to connect it up? So in this instance, we'll just plug it back. If you ever are uncertain about where something might be or if it's connected or not connected, just hover over it. Just double check that it's assigned what you expect it to have assigned. the cards are all named after the right streams and everything else. So you'll be able to make sure and double check that way. What else have we got? What else can I go into? In terms of best practice as well, like the way I've been working through the system personally is day page, create everything here, work through it here, tick everything off, send everything to where it needs to be at the end. That's the best way that I managed to be able to do things. It kept things very, very clean because of it, which I walk through the reflect stream. Sure. So the reflect stream is the only one that's not connected to the save functions. So you have the option to not connect certain streams up to whatever function you want. But the reason why is because we'll go this way. Oh, sorry, clicking around. Right, if I go back, the reflect stream is your day, week, month, and year. Okay? Your daily notes. You don't want these tags moving things out of the daily notes. So this is a default Tana. You don't want these to move around. So day tag, week tag, month. And you can do year if you want to, but that's basically what they're doing. It's giving you a reference to these points because so we have the daily focus view. Later in the future, there's going to be a weekly focus, there's going to be a monthly focus, and there'll be a yearly focus. But they're like in the plans for later. So up to you what you do with that information for now. But these items here, you might have your own things going on with week, month, and day. But regardless, you don't want them moving out of the daily notes. You want them to stay there. So that's really the rationale for that one. Inside of that, technically speaking, you can add other streams to reflect if you chose to, but that's probably for another deep dive later on how to create streams. I'll be doing several of these over the next couple of weeks, so I will definitely talk about at some point how to create your own streams and how to basically build up the hierarchy from that point onwards. The idea is you kind of have a bit of a way of doing things. The last thing that I will talk about in terms of like a best practice and pro tip is if you are in, I'm going to use the project as an example because it's probably the biggest one and most extensive. So in this instance, we've got Stream Ventures and the View Focus. And we have these all set up like this. But there will be instances where I'm just going to remove this to prove a point. Oh, I removed the wrong one. There might be instances where your hierarchy is like this, and you might not want that. And if it is like this, it's very easy to fix it. And all you do is you come up to the top and you just reorder what these are doing. Or an even easier solution is you go, okay, I've got the view and I've got the stream. That's all that's there. Just go track him down. So whatever the last one is, that will be the last. Like whatever the first item was, that's what will be assigned at the top. Whatever the last item is, that will be assigned at the bottom. So that's also another reason why certain tags are connected to the stream at the top versus the project. So the idea as well is that the save function, it goes back to the hierarchy. your save functions always need to be at the top level because they have certain triggers that need to happen at the beginning of the process before anything else happens. Doesn't matter what happens after that, but that's part of the structure of the streams. But that's already set up for you, and it's not really something we need to go into too much detail right now. But the functions are set in a particular way so that everything kind of like falls into a nice little like tidy, like, okay, I've got this, like, that's where it goes, this is where it lives, this is what it's related to. Bit OCD, but yeah. um, like going back to best practices again, like I've very much so been, and I'll stress this again, working in this space and planning in the project. And because you can do that, for me personally, yeah, for me personally, because I'm working here, I can clear everything else away. That's fine. I can see multiple things at once because I don't have to. If I zoom into something, you might lose a bit of context. So I can see everything that I'm working on in that current moment and go through it all and work however you choose to work in Tana. But I can also get to things really, really quickly, access whatever I need to access, go to an actual project, Simon, see everything that I need to go to, but this is where I want to plan. I don't need to know about the development phase and the delivery phase on Saturday because I'm in the discovery phase. So what does it matter what the other things are doing? Unless I'm looking for something like a resource or something to that effect, yeah, it's about what's relevant when it's relevant versus that whole thing again. Like the intention really is to keep you in the moment and deal with what needs to be dealt with now. And the argument, yeah, and to save overwhelmed, absolutely. Projects plan, days do. So I just noticed your messages. Yeah. Um, the yeah, project is planned, day is due. Day is due. Day is. Yeah, I can't stress that enough. I guess there was another thing as well, like the argument between what's active and what's next, and there was I'm not going to call anybody else on it, but I will say the story. So somebody that I gave the beta test to took all the tasks immediately and then basically started ticking active on every single one of them. And whilst there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, I didn't explain to her about the fact that the like the philosophical idea of what's active and what's in your focus. The human brain can only focus on one thing at a time. There's no multitasking. There's all a facade. You can only focus on one thing at a time. So if you take away that level of everything's shouting at me and everything's active, not everything can call for your attention in that moment. Everything has to be next until it's active, and it's active when it's active, when it's physically on your desk in front of you. The best way that I compared this, or the best example or metaphor that I could give it was the today page is my to-do list for the day. It's on my desk. It's got magic powers. I can write anything down or go wherever it needs to go to. But yeah, it's on my desk. The project is in the filing cabinet behind me. And if I need to look at something in more detail, I can turn around, I can pick up that pick up that project file, and I can look at it. And I can scribble something on there if I want to and directly link it, and it will organize itself into the folder. That's the that's kind of the intention. It's to keep you in that sort of zone of get this done now, or it needs to be pushed, or it needs to be addressed, needs to be scheduled. Yeah, purely depends on how you use this. Like it's open to interpretation, but that was kind of the intention that I had with making something active versus making something next. And yeah, if there's not many more questions. I think, is there anything else I can show you guys right now before for weekly? Okay. Ryan's asking, for weekly planning, do you have a way to view or a way to see all different projects so I can get the scheduled, can I get the scheduled in the week? So yes. So um, this is where it's completely up to you to a certain extent. And I say that with the idea that Tana is completely customizable for what you need. If you want to see, so hang on, I just want to double check I understand the question just before we go further forward, or before I go away answering something. For weekly planning, do you have a view or a way to see all of the different projects?
Oh, can you hear me? I might just
yes, I can
talk
hear
and
you.
say
Yes.
this will probably be way easier than trying to just type that all in text. So anyway, so
Appreciate it.
I run a sales team, right? And I've got
Okay.
a lot of different initiatives that I have the team working on, new product launches. The marketing guy reports to me. I report to the CEO. Anyway, like I've got a bunch of different things that hit my plate. And so it's helpful for me to like, all right, what are all the different things that I might have to do? Or these are all potentially, and then in your like kind of nomenclature you're using, these are the things I need to queue up, and now here's something that's active and I'm working on. But there's a lot of different things to look at. So there's kind of like this 10,000 foot view down on here's all the potential things, or here's all the different work streams you've got. That's what I'm just trying to get a sense of. Is you have a way to, I get it if you have a project, and I would love to have a project or two projects. The fact of the matter is it's just not that simple for me. And so I'm trying to get a sense if there's an easy way to see like a higher level view of here's all of the different stuff. Now I need to go and make sure that these are all touched or making progress and different things like that.
So on I've kind of just rushed through to my personal side just so I can kind of like show you. But if you go to the actual daily focus super tag itself, this is where you can make all those sorts of adjustments. But if you're actually on the today page, hang on. Easy way to get to this, okay, is if you click on the little options down here and you go edit related content, and all you would do if things aren't showing up the way you want them to, you just come into the search query and adjust this query. And as an example, if I just remove the status and just to keep it as not done, go back, and we should get, we're going to zoom out.
Okay.
So you get a satellite view.
When they're, I say I also had it active and up next as well. So you can kind of, if you're making sure you're tracking those and those different statuses, then that'd help.
Yeah. Okay. And I think even like you could even turn around and be like, if it's got a timeline attached to it or something, but the times I don't put the timeline in. So like
because there's some that just live in perpetuity. There's some that just are always going to be a focus, like, my margin requirements that I have for all the projects or something. Like, so there's things that are important that I need to look at, but they don't necessarily have a start or an end date, but it's always something that I have to be able to be accountable for.
So this is something as well, like like for example, a project, it might be active whilst you're working on it, but I understand the idea as well that it's active during the timeline as well, but it might not necessarily be in your active focus in that moment. So it switches to next, but not later. Later's be like, I'm not doing it. It's pushed aside. It's not, it's completely unscheduled, or it's not in my train of thought right now, or whatever it may be. But but what's to call it? But the project itself, like if you complete actions and things like that, it switches it all back to next. I think that's what I'm saying. And then, the idea is that the project should always kind of be there if it's in some type of view state for you, because it should be something that you need to go to if you're going looking for it. Like on my personal side, I've got like a satellite project dashboard, which just shows me the projects and status levels. But I've basically built it into the today page in this instance as well.
Okay.
So for me, it's
Double.
like I've got everything there, and it's like, I've got my dog, I've got my website, I've got visitors, but like the intention is that you have the satellite level view there, and you kind of tick everything off that you need to do. I've obviously had a finance related day to day, so like it just logs everything. But yeah, that's probably what you'd be looking at, is like you just adjust those search parameters just a little bit just to get exactly what you want. But this is also the reason why I think you'll notice throughout most of the system, I've tried to be quite general with yeah, Nick, I'll relay you a second and just what you said. So yeah, you can adjust those kind of queries a little bit so you can be a little bit more specific with how you want it to be or how you specifically work. I have tried to give a very general approach to the way things are coming into the different areas. So the intention really is that people take this system and scale it in your own way. I had somebody else actually ask me, it looked really impressive, but like, I don't know how to integrate it into my system. And that was kind of the interesting. You're kind of supposed to integrate into it, not to be like dead egotistical and everyone should be using my system, but like the intention is for it to sit as an infrastructure level so that you can effectively build your own system from that and take what I'm providing you as a framework to then build out things going further forward. So it's ready to go out the box if you want to use it as it is. But if you want to take it to that extra Tana level, then you've got all the building blocks necessary to then go off and replicate it and scale it and adjust it. Whenever I want to, I'll give you one little example to kind of finish off before we go. And before I do that, I'll just relay what Nick said in the chat. So in terms of like the statuses, like active is physically in your hand, next is like within reach, and later is far away. So that's another way of thinking of it as well. It's like, but I personally like the analogy. I mean, I guess it works the same way. Active is what's physically on my desk, ready to go, or physically in front of me, ready to go. Okay, no, let's do it this way. Active is physically in front of me. It's on my desk. It's in my hands. I'm working on it. Next it is in the inbox tray that's sat on my desk to the right. And later is in the filing cabinet waiting to come onto my desk. So it goes through that sort of level. And I used to work in an environment where we would have a sheet of paper on a little tray in the right. It would go onto my desk and then it would be done and it would go on the other side. And that's basically that's basically the same action we're doing here. Carol's saying the benefit for her has been that it's been able to keep things clean, and the benefit of that for me has been clean up things from the past few years. Sorry, I read that wrong. Yeah, so that's another thing as well. You are able to, it gives you a little bit of a better view of what's going on, and therefore I've been able to clean up my system much easier as well within a very short time frame, because you understand the hierarchy between things a little bit better as well.
Yeah, what I was referring to was bringing things in rather than adding this to my existing workspace, to bring things in so that I only brought in what I needed. And as I brought it in, I worked out what I actually needed and what I didn't. And half of it didn't bother coming through. And it's now a lot cleaner and easier to do.
Yeah, and also because you have this kind of like, let's move my personal computer screen off the demonstration. Because you have this way of looking at things, and when you start putting things into the right spaces, because now I can see I've got that weaker month that I set up before, I can see it's not connected into the system. So I'm now going to go into Reflect, and we'll drag both of those two items in there, and we'll assign them to the daily focus. Sorry, the time logs for the stream. So I found that when I was able to go through and be like, okay, this goes here, that goes there, this is actually on the same level as that in terms of behavior. Like, you completely rethink how you work your system. It gives you an anchor to basically understand, look at it. It's why I kind of mentioned in the video, it's like, it's not quite a graph view, but it gives you a very visual understanding of where your system is at. If I show you, yeah, why not? I can show you. So I'm going to show you what my personal schema looks like in the streams to kind of give you an idea of kind of how things can kind of scale out from this point. And then I'll probably end it if there's not much any other questions from that point. And I'll continue this in like another deep dive further forward. But effectively, I've got one project that's time restricted because that's client-based work, and everything else falls under a different subheading for pursuits because they are not time restricted. I've got lots of different objectives because they all have different types of containers, but I only really have one action task that I'm using. Post is exactly the same level as an action, but I'm actually debating whether or not that should be there or not. I think that should be in a material, but I'll talk about that in just a moment when I go through. Events are hopefully pretty self-explanatory. And when you come to gather, this is where it gets a bit more interesting. And I don't want to overwhelm anybody, but like, I have lots and lots of different things that go on because I have lots of different things that I do. I have all sorts of stuff related to design. I've got stuff related to the Tana stuff. I've got stuff related to clients, etc. Everything for the next Gigabrain, which is coming soon. Hope I don't get in trouble for saying anything, but that's all there. And effectively, we've got all these different records of stuff that's happening. So they all split out differently throughout the system. Materials are specifically related to a product or something physical. I have all sorts of things in here, but there was an interesting conversation that I had with Carol actually, which was like the difference between what's a resource and what is a task. Creating a document is the task, but the document itself is a resource. So you don't have to treat them the same way. They can be completely different. But this is why I was thinking, does post really sit in action? Or does it actually sit in materials because it's a deliverable, it's an actual something, it's a resource, it's a finished item. So if it is, then I don't need to treat it like a task, which means my whole system gets a lot cleaner again, because I'm using less tags for my daily driver. So that's another factor involved as well. It's like, how can you reduce down your cognitive load? I don't know how many other people have got like a million. I mean, I'll show you something. I don't have it anymore. I had 6 different project form super tags that all extended each other because they had different attributes all the way through them. And I don't need that anymore. I've got the Snips. So I've got one super tag for it, and that's it. It's just, it helps you consolidate things down much easier this way. Me personally, at least anyway. Nick says action versus thought versus thing. Yeah, absolutely. It goes down to what I said at the very beginning of the video, which is what's the behavior of this item? What's it supposed to be doing? Where does it supposed to live in Tana? That's how you dictate what stream it goes into. It's really just a case of, if it's a thing, is it an action? Yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly as Nick was saying. Is it a thing? Is it an action? Or is it a thought? My brain caught up with that very slowly. Yeah, that's basically where we're at for the moment in terms of like explaining everything I could possibly explain for now without any further questions. I'll wait an extra like minute or so if anybody does have questions, but this is kind of where I'm at for the moment. I can continue much more over the next few weeks over several of the deep dives. And I hope this was useful for everybody here.
Really helpful. Thanks so much. Appreciate you taking your time out of your day to share this.
No, my absolute pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.